Hello, Facebook family. Welcome to another episode of Marriage Mondays with Nick and Trina Brinson. Glad to have you here tonight with us as we go through another episode, and hopefully we can tell you some things that'll make your marriage better. But I can tell you tonight's show is going to be a little bit different than what we've done in the past, and we're going to be telling you about. We're going to give you a generational look into marriages and how marriages have changed over the years, and how the responsibilities and how people look at marriages. So that's what and hopefully using that information can guide you on a path of making your marriage better.
Well, while we get started and wait for some folks to join us, we got Tony Jones. He's the winner tonight. First one in. So thank you, Tony, for joining us. And while we give people some time to come on in before we really get started, we're going to go ahead and share this video with other people. And we ask you to do the same, like and share, and of course comment and chat with us tonight as we go through it. But I'm going to go ahead and post this if I can. This multitasking is I can do well in some areas, but talking and handling these electronic devices, that's a whole nother story. So I'm going to try to do that, or I'll wait for you to do it and then I'll do it after you do it. But we definitely want you to share. We represent Crown Kingdom Cultural Center, and that is the church ministry that we are happy to be a part of. And we represent our church ministry as well as pastor, which is led by Pastor Finus Bush Jr. and Denise Bush. They have given us lots of good teaching, and we endeavor to share some of that to you specific to marriage. So we do not claim to be marriage counselors, because that's not where we are right now at this point in our lives. But we have been through we have been married for 24?
It'll be 24 this year.
Yeah, in June it'll be 24 years. And we've had a lot of lessons that we have learned along the way. We have learned that skills are so important. So just marrying your best friend is great. We did that. Marrying someone who's a Christian, that's a great start. That's essential. We did that. Neither of those, marrying somebody who you have things in common with and you're compatible with, and who you're going in the same direction. We did all those things, and we still had lots of trouble in our marriage. Just the process of the two of us merging our lives together has been challenging. And so we have learned a lot of lessons along the way. We've had a lot of help from mentors and leaders and pastors. That help is the experience we have gained during the course of taking care of our own marriage and still continuing to do so. That's the value that we bring to you through Marriage Mondays with the lady and the coach. So that's what we're sharing today. So we're learning as we go, just as you are. But we have quite a bit of experience under our belts as well. And we love to share that with others to help you in your marriage as well. So we hope to inspire you to take care of your relationship.
Okay. So we have a couple of folk that are in here tonight, and just want to thank y'all for joining us. As y'all continue to come in, tonight's topic is we're going to look at marriages through the generations. We're going to look at the traditionalist marriages, the baby boomers, the Gen X marriages, and the millennial marriages. And that covers over 50 years or so of marriages or so. So tonight we're going to start with, you ready?
You go ahead. I'm trying to get my life together over here.
Oh.
Sharing.
We're going to talk about the traditionalists, starting out talking about those people. Those are the ones that are born before 1946 and decide to get married. Now, this marriage group, they looked at marriage as a partnership. Kind of like we're going to get married because that's just what we do. We're going to get married not for happiness, but we're going to get married because that's what people our age do. And we're looking for a good, strong match and a good, strong family. So traditionalists don't look at at whether I am happy. They don't ask themselves that question. Am I happy in this marriage? Is this marriage for me? They look at marriage as, okay, I'm going to support my family is because that's what I get married to, support my family as the man. And in that same traditionalist marriage, the female or the wife of the house is supposed to take care of the children and be the domestic caretaker.
Can I interject something here? It's important to keep in mind that we are talking from a perspective of stereotypes, but we recognize that nobody really fits a stereotype 100%. So we do have there are actually 7 categories that the generations are divided up in, but we're looking at what 4 or 5 of them, 4 in reference to marriage. And what we want to do is look at the pros and cons of that are typical for people in that category, that generational category, so that we can learn from them, because we all can learn from one another and from these different groups. There are some things that these groups did as a whole, what was characteristic of a generational group that we can learn from. And so we're certainly not saying that, just because you were born during a certain time period that you behaved a certain way. We recognize that these are just stereotypes, and we are looking to learn to make our individual marriages stronger by looking at what these groups as a whole, the lessons we can learn from them.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I say. So when you say traditionalists, we're not talking about individual people.
Right.
We're just talking about that group as a whole, what is stereotypically accepted as a characteristic for that group. And let's learn from that and see what lessons we can get from those groups that can help us in our relationship.
And the thing about it is the stuff that I just talked about. I looked at my grandparents and they fit that role pretty well.
Oh, really?
Yeah. My granddad would get up and he'll go to work all day. And grandma, I never known grandma not to be at the house or she'd go somewhere to work.
Oh, really?
No, not on my mom's side.
That's interesting. I could probably say that about I don't know that my grandmother, my grandma Effie, hey grandma, that does watch the show. I don't think I've ever known her to have a job. Of course, when I knew her, she was a grandmother, so I don't, I don't know what she did prior to that. But now that I think about it, I've never known her to have a job either. She always was taking care of family. Mm-hmm. That was always what she did, and not just her family, really the neighborhood, Mm-hmm. But that was her primary role, was that as mother, as well as wife. So yeah, I have to agree with you, and I think she would be a part of that. What's the birth?
Born before 1946.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So she would be a part of that that generation. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I can agree with that. I did witness that, and same for my grandparents on the other side, my mom's side, that are deceased. My granddad worked.
Yep.
And she took care of the family. I think I heard that she would clean houses some, to make money. But I wouldn't say she was a career woman.
Oh, my God.
She raised her family. She was another one that took care of the neighborhood. She was a sort of a neighborhood mother. Very much involved in the community. But yeah, I didn't mean to go down memory lane on you then.
Yeah, you did.
But you didn't have to agree like that. Keep it moving.
All right. So, just thinking about how these people operated, and just pulling from my background, I don't remember those folk ever talking about being happy in a marriage. They were together because they were married and they had kids and they had responsibilities, and they had those shared responsibilities during that time. Mm-hmm. So now, one thing that we can pull from what the traditionalists did was they made marriage a commitment.
Yeah, my grandparents are still married. Both of them are still living, and they are still married. They're still committed to each other, even as they have gotten older and have health issues. They are still very much together.
Very much.
I can't say that I really saw them being affectionate towards one another. When I think about it, I knew they loved each other and they work together to raise their family. But I mean, we won't go catch them in the corner kissing or nothing.
I never, I can honestly say this, I never seen my granddaddy kiss my grandmother. I never saw it.
I don't know.
Just thinking about it right now, being retrospective.
And you lived in the house
and
with
I
him.
lived in the house with him. Never saw him kiss. But that was during that time. So the thing is, we know it's changed, but we want to just emphasize some of the things that made that marriage work was the fact that they saw marriage as a commitment. They committed to each other. When they said I do, it was done. And they committed to each other. So, what happened after that when the baby boomer came along?
Oh, the baby boomers thought they could do it better.
Ooh-wee. Well, they changed it.
Just like children often do. They want to look at their parents and figure they know better, they can do it better. And I think that's what happened with the baby boomers.
Yes,
they came along and they decided that they wanted good sex in their marriage. They wanted
talk about our
soulmate. Yeah,
yes.
We're gonna talk about what our parents wouldn't talk about, and we're gonna talk about it loud for everybody to hear. And that's what is characteristic of the baby boomers in their marriage. Their expectations shifted. They wanted a soulmate. They didn't just want somebody to fill a role. They tended to want a soulmate. And so they were looking for what was going to be right for them as an individual, not so much focused on, let me just find somebody to pair up with and be a good team. And so the baby boomers, they were during what the 640, they were 1946 to 1964.
Birth years, yeah.
Yeah, that's when those are people that are born during that time. And that was also, let me see, it must have been that the traditionalists that were having so many babies, because that was where they got the name baby boomers from, because there were so many babies born during that time. The number of people born during that time is the largest, I don't know today, but that's why they were called baby boomers. So they really should have thought about that. So there must have been something going on, even if their parents weren't talking about it, if all these babies were being born. So they might not have been doing it out for everybody to see.
But they were about it now.
Okay, but they was handling business.
Yes, they were. And it's probably, something that we didn't talk about much. We didn't talk about it at all. But if all those children were born, that means sex was part of the plan, part of the priorities. And, they didn't talk about it, but then the boomers want to come back and come out and talk about the sex. And when we're talking about them, if I'm not fulfilled, this is when they got into their feelings. We don't have to be together. Yeah. This generation shared the highest rate of divorce rate based on the information that we read of all time.
Jumping divorces.
Yep.
Yeah.
So they got divorced. If you're not fulfilling me and you're not doing, and I'm not feeling you, we ain't got to be in this marriage no more.
The 70s had the highest rate of divorce. It actually doubled during that time, and it began to decline in the 80s. But yeah, so during the 70s, that's when there were lots of divorces, and it came with, I think, my theory behind that is that they were getting married for reasons that were a little bit unrealistic.
Yeah. And
things that don't necessarily sustain marriage. They were kind of fixated on just one part of marriage, because you do need a good partner in marriage. Someone who has those characteristics, which is what the traditionalists were looking for.
Right.
Yeah. But baby boomers, they can show they had high expectations, and they were motivated to seek help when their marriages were not going well. And that's a lesson that we really can learn from baby boomers, is that they were more apt to go get counseling, to go get some help, to seek out help than the traditionalists and even the silent generation before them were.
Right.
They tended to try to just stick it out and be miserable instead of trying to fix the problems. And so that's what baby boomers, something that they brought out in marriage is, they were like, well, let's get some help. Things aren't going well, so let's try to get some help. Now, granted, they had more divorces.
That was also
they didn't stick it out very well.
That was also the era of free love and disco, and a lot of things started to change the way the world was operating. So we don't have time to really go into all that.
Yeah, because
that did play a part.
There's a spiritual side to all of this.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
They started experimenting more with drugs and make love,
Careless.
not war, and they just had a whole bunch of stuff just start to come about during those years.
I think in a nutshell, they were seeking to find the benefits that we get through Christ. They were seeking those through other things, through drugs, through sex, through music, instead of relying on God for those things. And we hadn't snapped out of that yet.
We trying.
It's gotten more. Are we?
Yeah, divorce rate not as high.
I
don't think people getting married as much anymore either as these.
They're not. They're not. Now let's talk about. Did we talk? We talked about what we can learn from.
Right.
All right. Let's talk about our generation.
Our generation, us. We are the Generation X marriages. Those that are born between 1965 and 1980. We are 70 babies.
We are.
And maybe some of that love, not war, came out of that. So, but we're here, and we saw a divorce rate that doubled, and we were a little bit skeptical about marriages and whether we wanted to get married or not.
Well, a lot of us, not us personally, but a lot of Gen Xers are children who were raised by divorced families, divorced parents, and that had an impact.
Right.
It made people skeptical about marriage, but it also motivated them that, okay, if I get married, I'm not putting my child through divorce.
Right.
And so it brought about a conversation to where it's kind of that same mindset. I can do better than my parents. And we should learn. We should. Which is what we're trying to do today, is learn from each generation. But Gen Xers, which is us, a lot of us were latchkey kids.
Yep.
And that came about, well, I'm jumping ahead a little bit. But for us, during our generation, the characteristics were that we were the first generation that saw more women than men graduate from college. Because now women, due to divorce, you got to remember, we're children of divorce. A lot of the people in our generation had parents who were divorced. So we saw single mothers that had to learn how to make it. And so we got that lesson from our mothers. Hey, you got to get your education. You got to make sure you can take care of yourself as a woman. And so the women started to really excel in and outdo men educationally. Mm-hmm. And so now we have the effects of that coming into the marriage, because now you have men and women who are more educated and career driven. And so we're more independent. Right. And even the men, a lot of them were raised by single mothers, and so they see that, they value that independent mother perspective. But the flip side of that too is when you have these fathers that don't necessarily step up. So all these things have impacted marriages, and there's lessons we can learn from that. It is. And even during this time, men still did less, and right now, even with us, I would say you spent way more time with our girls than I did in the early years. Because we agreed. Yeah. That was an agreement. And that's kind of what our generation did, is we decided that we have to protect the marriage. We got to protect these kids. Mm-hmm. And so what happened is we recognized as a generation that there's a trade-off. Right. That, yes, I want to work, and yes, I want to raise the kids. So I got to figure out how to make that work. And what happened is couples tended to start working together to make that work, to try to save the marriage and take care of the children, so that the children didn't get lost in the midst of, there being a divorced family. So we want to protect them from that and make sure we raise these kids. And I think we kind of fell into that category, as well as, we want our careers, but we also want to protect this family. But we also want to protect the structure of our home. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it took planning to do that, and that's one thing that I think people of the older generation kind of admire this generation for, is the fact that we're able to have two careers. Yeah. And be able to take care of the family, and we actually
learn how to protect the family and in those ways. And it took planning.
Mm-hmm.
It took some sacrificing.
But a negative part of all that too, which I'm not sure if it was in the article, but just I mean, we live it. We know this generation because we're part of it. Is that the women very often begin to sort of take over the homes, even when there's a man in the home. That has become common within our generation. Would you say that that's so? That the women that there's a more difficult time getting women don't want to submit anymore. Mm-hmm. It's a foreign concept, and it's hard because we are leaders, and we don't want somebody, just like anybody really, telling us what to do. And that becomes, I think it's much harder for Gen Xers than it is for even the baby boomers or the traditionalists, especially.
Well, see, they didn't have to put up much with that.
Who?
The baby boomers and the traditionalists. Traditionalists had the what I would call the submissive women, the submissive wife. She submitted to their husband. I think our bishop talked about it sometime where he had an uncle who would come in the house and his wife would actually take his shoes off and so he could sit down and rest his feet. Now, I think what happened with the generation with the baby boomers, there lies the conflict of, okay, I want to love my husband, I want to submit to him, but now I see that I don't quite want to do this like my mama did. I'm not taking your stinking shoes off.
That's what I'm saying. Doing that. Yeah, submission is, it looks different.
And that has ultimately changed to where we are now, where you're raised in a household where women are not doing that. So their sons, when they get married, they really don't expect their wives to do it. And you got those daughters who say their mom not doing it. And now that brings us to where we are. That we're gonna work together as a unit to create this family.
But can we back up?
What's that?
Because taking somebody's shoes off, is that submission or servanthood?
It's a little bit of both.
It depends on the position of the heart.
But see, it's what that era decided to do. I mean, if they did it back then and it worked for them, that worked in that era. That don't work in this era. It won't. Mm-mm. No, we're not doing that.
We're not.
First of all, I don't even think I want you taking my shoes off. We're not even doing that.
Because
I don't want you to. I can take my own shoes off.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. It's a different mentality, different mindset. And so submission can look different in different homes. Because I assure you that wouldn't work in our home either way. You wouldn't have it and I wouldn't either.
I don't even think I touch your feet now. I thought I'd just put that out there, y'all. But anyway, that wouldn't work for us. Why are you looking at me like that?
Because that was so out of place.
But anyway, we're just talking about what Gen Xers do and what. Now we get to the last group that we're going to talk about tonight. Those millennials. Us Gen Xers talk about those millennials like, oh, them some different folk. But we love them just the same. And we know that we can work closely with them because they're still pretty close in age with us, as far as their development, because these are the people that were born in 1981 to 1998.
Yeah. Yeah. Millennials are interesting. I think for us, they are so distinctly different from us as Gen Xers.
Right.
So, I mean, I think we probably give them a bad rap, as being know-it-alls. And, but, they really do have some positive qualities for people in that generation, and particularly in reference to marriage.
All right. The millennials, the Gen Xers and the millennials are considered to be, based on this article we read, the ones that believe in love and in marriage. They want those qualities, and they don't want somebody to just be there to just be there with
Check
them.
The boxes,
yeah, they want somebody they can really fall in love with and really make them better.
And they'll wait to do it. They don't feel pressured to get married at such an early age. A lot of millennials do get married later than say people in our generation, but they don't wait to have sex. They having sex. They out
Oh,
there
yeah,
doing that, but they are and they're cohabiting a lot more. Their numbers are higher. In fact, it's a common belief among millennials that they don't need to be married to have a successful relationship.
Right, and they done turn what I consider just as a side note. They done turn that biological clock off. They don't even go by that. We'll get married when it's time to get married, and we'll have children when it's time to have children.
Yeah.
But they don't. They not going with, oh, I want to have children by the time I'm 30, and I want to be married by 35. And no, they're not doing that. It's like, well, we'll make this happen when it happens.
Yeah.
And we could be wrong. If some of y'all millennials out there are listen to us, say something to us, make a comment, so we can have a lively discussion.
But the thing about millennials is they understand that marriage is going to take work.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they tend to take it more seriously even than, the previous generations before them, as in, I want to do it right when I do it. I don't want to, marry somebody who's not going to be a good partner or have my marriage to be a mess. I want to take the time to make sure that I get the right person. I think they're a little more focused on that than previous generations have been. And that's actually a positive thing, is to realize that, marriage is not to be entered into lightly.
Right.
And so we have to give millennials credit for that. But they are also the first generation where almost equal percentages of husband and wives both desire demanding jobs. So significantly more female millennials graduate from universities than males. So,
and one key point I want to make about millennial men, they feel like universities and colleges are not necessary. Yeah. They feel like, well, I can learn a trade and make just as much money as I did if I went to college. And there's a lot of truth. There's a lot of truth to that. They're learning to start businesses and start entrepreneurs, and they're making their money doing that. And they don't think that the necessity to go to college is important. So that's how they're taking care of their families. So,
but millennials do work together well as a team, as a whole. There's traditional roles are kind of out the window, completely. I mean, millennials are making it work the best way they can, and their divorce rate is much lower.
Yeah, much lower.
Now, granted, they're getting married less,
and they're more mature.
But those that are getting married are having a lower divorce rate. And you're right; they are more mature when they're getting married, because marriage is delayed for them. So they're more mature. They kind of understand the world a little bit more, and there's that immaturity that comes in getting married young. They don't have to deal with that quite as much. Mm-hmm. So we can learn something from the millennials in that regard.
Right.
Also millennials in the workplace are very impact oriented.
Right.
They want to make an impact. And I think that also comes through in the way they approach their marriage as well. Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. So Gen Zers are just getting started. So we'll have to talk about them once they make some history. They're still real young. Those are the ones that are born in the 90s, basically. Mid 90s and the 2000s. That's our girls. Yeah, they're young.
They putting up with a lot more stuff than we ever had.
Well, these will be the kids of the pandemic. These are
pandemic kids, mm-hmm. cell phones, all the computer stuff, mm-hmm. the technology, the technological age. They're going
millennials too, though.
Yeah, but they doing some like these kids, like you said, are the pandemic kids, but they have a lot more. They're a lot more tech savvy, and they don't have the interpersonal skills to deal with people. Mm-hmm. So we're gonna really see how this does with them.
That's true. Yeah, I can imagine that would definitely their social skills and their interpersonal skills would definitely have an impact on marriage. I think in the future, mm-hmm. that'll be interesting to see. We'll have to stand by and watch, and
we're gonna be here to help them. We will. Things that we believe in changing with the age and educating kids and people and marriages the way they need to be. Giving you new information that will help you sustain your marriage and us. Because every time we come on here, we are always learning something new. And I've had several people to tell us that, y'all don't really hide y'all issues, do you? Why? Why do that?
Well, I believe from the beginning that our relationship had a purpose, which was to serve others and for us to be an example. And I remember even praying that early on in our marriage, but God knows I didn't know what I was asking for. So, but I believe that was a desire that God instilled. But
Yep.
I really don't have much hesitation about sharing what we go through because it's only going to help somebody else. And pride kind of goes out the window because y'all dealing with the stuff too. Y'all just don't want to talk about it. But we don't, and that's fine. You don't have to. But we certainly don't mind sharing for the purpose of helping others. That's what it boils down to. So somebody's got to do it and look like we were picked for it. So y'all benefit from it.
Appreciate y'all for joining us. So closing remarks. You got anything?
I don't think so. I can't think of anything outright.
Okay.
Y'all come see us. Come fellowship with us at church. Where doors are open on Sundays at 10. 720 Old Edgefield Road, North Augusta, South Carolina. Just a couple of exits up, not far from the Washington Road exit at all. 2 or 3 exits down from Washington Road?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's not that far outside of Augusta at all. Don't let the South Carolina tail ending of the address fool you. So come on and check us out and
if you're in the area, because we got people that listen to us from other places, if you're in the area, come check us out. Just come and see us and fellowship with us on a Sunday morning, and we're glad to have you.
Most of the time we're there. Come let us know who you are, and we do this for the kingdom of God. That's the bottom line. We do this to represent the kingdom of God and to help you all. It helps us too, but that's what we're here for, and we're glad to do it.
Right. With that said, from the lady and the coach, we love y'all. Good night.